Francesca.
I'm Victoria.
I'm Laura.
And welcome to Novel Nights. All right, it decided to kill it early. Welcome. Happy 2025, everybody. Happy New Year. Woo. This is our first Novel Nights for the new year. And I'm just going to say it's my fault why we're not live this week. We were supposed to be live, so technically second, but we were supposed to be live. It didn't work out because I'm traveling. So this is another pre-recording. I promise we will be live next week. This is the first video we're recording in the new year. So I'm here saying it's the first. It's because it's the first one we're recording. Francesca, how are things? How's 2025? Tell us about the beginning of the new year for you.
It's been quiet, which was good. I did get quite a bit of rest, but I mean, it was a forced rest because I got injured. But, all of that has been going well. Recovery's been going well. I'm still going to be with my brace for 3 months, so that will be fun. But I am hopping around and, moving around a little bit more, so I'm good. So it's been good.
Yeah. What about content? What can we expect? What's new?
There's so much stuff happening with content. Like, I don't even know where to start. The YouTube channel has been starting to get more content, so I'm trying to be more consistent there. And I'm going to be bringing a lot of Romance Happily recommendations. So a lot of the videos that I'm going to be posting are things that you can use for Romance Happily. So, of course, Romance Happily kicked off January 1st. So that is the yearly reading challenge that I hope everybody comes and join us. It's so cute. So I'm super excited about that. And then also we kicked off a new book club that we're doing for 2025. We're picking one book every single month, and it's going to be Kindle Unlimited titles that are fantasy, paranormal, or historical romance. So this month is fantasy. So fantasy romance. Romantasy.
Yes, yes. Laura, what about you? How's the new year? Still in Puerto Rico? And what content are you working on?
I am still in Puerto Rico, one more week left over. And then I had a mild flu, so it was just kind of like resting. But now I'm bringing content, daily blog posts, daily content on Substack, just putting content together. And hopefully the YouTube and podcast will be back in February. So we're gearing that up. We'll have that ready to go.
Yes. I mean, the new year was mostly quiet, lots of projects. I've been working on my bookshelves. I'm in a new space. You're on my dining table. Welcome. So, still working on the shelves. It's looking like the end of the month before I'll move back into that space. It's pointless going back in and there's work to be done. So that was one big thing coming into the new year. Also excited about all the Substack content. I've really been enjoying this space. So be sure to find all three of us on Substack. It's lots of fun. I have a vision board workshop coming up, which is really, really exciting. It's Friday. Let me double check the date. The 17th. It's going to be Friday the 17th. We're doing it live at 6 p.m. Just again, head to Substack. The link will be in the video's description to hopefully join me, maybe join me for book club at the end of the month. All those links are on Substack so that you can join us. But I'm excited for the year ahead and just Novel Nights and just everything we have planned. Now, today we are talking about book series, specifically completed book series, because I kind of feel like the winter time is good for those chunky books or those completed series that you can binge. So we'll be sharing different books in different genres that are completed. So you can just, grab these and binge all winter long. I'll be sharing some more literary novels. Francesca will be sharing some fantasy, and Laura is sharing some cozy mysteries. So you're going to have a mixed bag today. And hopefully get some great recommendations to add to your reading list. So I am going to, if the system will allow me, pop off Laura and Fran. I'm going to go first and hopefully test this, and hopefully it's working for me in the new year. Okay. So the first series I want to share with you, because I'm sharing literary series, I'm sharing a stunning box set, which I don't have. I bought the books individually, so I was a bit salty when I saw this set. And it's the Wolf Hall trilogy. So there are 3 books in the series. I'm just going to go through the images so you can see them really quick. So the first book is entitled Wolf Hall. Then we have Bring Up the Bodies. And then the last book in the series is The Mirror and the Light. So there are 3 books in the trilogy, but I'm going to go back to the first one, to Wolf Hall, to kind of really set the stage for you so you know what to expect in this trilogy. Although I think the box set looks cute. So let's go back to that slide. Okay. So I personally feel like this is a must read for fans of historical fiction and literary fiction, because I feel this trilogy, but also this book, just really redefines historical fiction and storytelling, because it just takes us on a really, really intense but detailed journey. So essentially, we are following the life of a man. His name is Thomas Cromwell. He's someone who, if you're familiar with, English history, he's not portrayed in the most favorable light. He's often very vilified. He was a man alive during the time of Henry VIII. So we see him in the court of Henry VIII, but through a very, in my opinion, very different and unique lens. So we don't get the caricature of Cromwell that is often portrayed in history, which is, this ruthless, power-hungry person. Instead, in this book and in this series, he's presented as a more humanized figure, presented as more complex. So we also get to see a man who is just incredibly ambitious, but also complex, detailed. So anyway, backstory on Thomas Cromwell. He was born the son of a blacksmith, and we see him rise. So someone who is from humble beginnings, who rises to become the king's most trusted advisor. So if you're invested in, just like royal history or anything like that, you see someone from humble beginnings rising to this level, but you're also seeing him navigate just the complexities and also the volatile, I feel, politics of England at that time. Now, this is set in the Tudor era, which is my personal favorite to read. But again, Hilary Mantel, I think she's a genius in writing, and she really just explores Thomas Cromwell, the world of King Henry VIII at that time, in just a brilliant kind of way. Now, again, she makes you feel through the writing like you're there in the room, you're there in the court, you get to see everything that's going on in Thomas Cromwell's mind. So it's historical fiction, but it's also very literary because it's very interior. So it allows us to kind of see every move that this character, it's historical fiction, but it's a retelling of this man. So anyway, it's very layered. We see lots of key figures. Another key figure that you might be familiar with is Anne Boleyn as well. And we just kind of really see a man's ambition, okay? A blacksmith, a humble man, and just how he grows. So ultimately, this trilogy, so that's just book 1, that's just Wolf Hall. But ultimately, in the trilogy itself, it's more a meditation on power, loyalty, being flawed human beings. But it's a very historical, political, dynamic kind of a book. But I think it's very captivating. I love seeing how Hilary Mantel reshapes history and just gives us a fresh perspective. So again, it's a Wolf Hall trilogy. The first book is Wolf Hall, the title. Then we have Bring Up the Bodies, and then we have The Mirror and the Light. So that is the first trilogy, or the first completed series I'm sharing with you today. The next series I'm sharing with you is the Copenhagen trilogy. Now, this is a trilogy I devoured over a weekend. And immediately after I finished it, I wanted to pick up the book and start over again. Now, because I was a fan, I have 2 sets of the books. So this cover that you're seeing on the screen right now, this is one book. It's a hardcover book. I think maybe they have a paperback by now, but it's a hardcover with all 3 books in there. So in the Copenhagen trilogy, book 1 is entitled Childhood, book 2 is Youth, and book 3 is Dependency. So I'm going to show you the covers of the other books. So you can get them singularly like this. So this is a cover for Childhood, this is a cover for Youth, and this is a cover for Dependency. So I have these 3, but I also purchased the hardcover trilogy because I was just very captivated by this book. Now, I read the trilogy all at once because this is a translation, and That's how it was published here in America. And this is a story that I feel doesn't tell a story. It really pulls you into the world of the author. So the trilogy, again, I don't remember the date. I should have looked this up before I hopped on here, but I feel it does memoir and literary in a really unique way. I felt like I was reading this woman's confessions, reading her diaries or something. It does so in a stream of consciousness kind of style, which I think was pioneering for the time. Again, I forgot the year this was written, but look it up. But yes, it's a memoir, it's a trilogy, it's written in a literary style. So like I said, it's divided into 3 volumes: childhood, youth, and dependency, and it takes us through her life essentially. So childhood takes us through the early years in Copenhagen, youth takes us through her coming of age period, and then dependency, it really shares her struggles, both in relationships, but also with addiction. It's not your ordinary life story. And I think what I appreciated is that the author didn't try to, cherry pick certain parts of her life or present stories in a way that is light and, idealistic and romantic. No, instead, we just get very intimate details that's just very brutally honest. And it shares what it was like to be a woman at her time, also trying to be an artist as well, and just having to navigate all of that. So I really appreciated it. So if you're interested in the interior lives of women and just human beings and trying to be an artist, you'll really get that. So in the childhood portion, we get like her childhood, as the title suggests, but we realize that she grew up in really impoverished circumstances and her mom wasn't really kind towards her. And you realize she had to grow up really early, and her neighborhood was also just a very rough place. So we realized then how it shaped her from her early years. Then in the second book, Youth, we see her stepping into adulthood, a young woman yearning for independence, ending up with, a bit, dodgy jobs, very questionable relationships, and seeing her navigate that while wanting to pursue her literary ambitions. But what I also appreciated about this one, even though, it has those things that aren't really, light and pleasant, is that you really see her brain starting to turn and the spark to be, a writer and to pursue her art really come to light, but at the same time, her balancing loneliness and insecurity. And then the last one now, dependency. Unfortunately, we see her life really start to spiral. Addiction comes into play. We see her just getting really dependent on painkillers as a way to just navigate life and relationships, and her marriage that was just filled with lots of, control and just betrayal and inevitably, of course, heartbreak. We really see her in her darkest moment. But even in this darkest moment, her voice is just so very clear. Like, even me recalling it right now, it's like, it's one of those books where the voice is just very distinct. I can still hear it. I've read this trilogy around 2 to 3 times. I don't think I completed it the third go around. I think I probably read the second and the last book. But this is something you can complete in a weekend or maybe over a week if you're not rushing. It's very brilliant. So long story short is, what I think about this trilogy is that it's just honest. It's raw. It's not just a memoir, but it's something that I feel it's universal. It has universal themes that speaks to anyone who's ever felt trapped or just haunted by their own desires, but also being driven at any cost. So I really enjoyed this trilogy. As you can tell from the title, Copenhagen, it's set in Denmark, but during like the earliest 20th century or thereabout. I don't remember when. But I just know she just really brilliant. So I highly recommend. Okay, and then the last set I'm going to share with you all is, so let me skip through the Copenhagen trilogy again, is The Outline Trilogy by Rachel Cusk. Rachel Cusk is an author. I will read absolutely anything this woman writes. I don't care. She publishes it. I'm buying it. I'm reading it. Yes, I spend my coins on Rachel Cusk. Actually, all these three, I spent my good money on these, getting good editions too. So what I'm showing you right now is the cover of one book that has all three books. So it's called The Outline Trilogy. The first book is Outline, the second book is Transit, and the third one is Kudos. So all three you can get in one book, or you can have individuals. So I have these individuals. I actually don't have the one book with all three. These are the editions I have. So first one, Outline, second one, Transit, and the third one, Kudos. So these are the three books. And I'm telling you, I did not read these immediately as they were published. Instead, I read them when they were all available. So I essentially binged this. I remember my first reading was over a summer. I don't remember how long it took me, but it was over a summer and I was just engrossed. Now, let's start with the first book. I'm just going to talk about the first book, Outline. I think this book, when it came out, I think because it just broke all convention of normal novel writing, so to say, because it's not your typical story with a clear plot. This is more, again, for those literary girlies out there, there is no clear plot. There is no traditional narrative. So don't say I didn't tell you. Instead, this is a novel that unfolds through conversations. So if you're not someone who can just go with the flow, like you don't have an end destination, like you don't know where you're going, but you're just following this person, then this series is for you. Because as a reader, you also kind of feel like you are eavesdropping on the conversation or narrator is having, whether it's musings by herself or in conversation with someone else. So again, don't say I didn't tell you. So it's a very reflective and just stream of consciousness, again, style of story. Now, at the center is our main character, whose name is Faye. She's a writer. She's traveling to Athens. So if you're in the winter somewhere and you want to be transported to somewhere warm, this is it. So we see her traveling to Athens. She's going there to teach a creative writing course. But here's the thing. We don't learn anything about Faye. Instead, we see her and we don't really get to know her, but we see her move through the world and everyone she interacts with. So we see her through the people she meets. We see the conversations she has with students, friends, and strangers. Each of them are revealing their own stories and it's kind of their vulnerabilities and all the things. And it's like, she's that friend who's just like listening, right? We listen and we don't judge. That is kind of the energy you're getting. So it's really a novel about interactions and the fine line between you telling a story, but you also listening. Because again, she isn't giving us her story, but her presence is deeply felt. So that I think is like a hallmark of, if you're wondering why people are so crazy about this. So if you pay attention to like literary stuff and then you're like, yeah, I heard about this, that's the reason why. So the book doesn't tell us what to feel or think. We inhabit the space. So I really enjoyed it. Again, you're going to ask me like, what is it about? Okay, it's a story about identity, who we are, relationships, the way we see ourselves, the way we see other people, and just the stories we choose to tell and the stories we choose not to tell. So I'm telling you, she goes through Greece. We see her meet someone. We see, how that kind of relationship unfolds. So again, this is for readers who love those introspective reads. I will admit it's not for everybody, but if it is for you, you will enjoy it and you will have a really, really fun ride. So I hope you enjoy these recommendations. Again, very literary heavy, but I think they're worth it. What did y'all think?
Sounds fun. I love a book set in Denmark too. So
yeah,
I think that one is so good.
Is special.
I think it's good. I've never read a memoir or anything like that. It's really unflinching, but it's good. And it also makes you realize men are trash. I'm just saying. Wow. I'm just saying. She's had so much disappointments, this poor woman, but I feel like this book is the crown jewel of her life. So yeah.
Sounded good.
Awesome. All right. So, Francesca, what do you have for us?
So I have fantasy books because I feel that fantasy is perfect to read in the winter, especially some of the darker, like heavier kind of fantasies with some political intrigue and all of those kind of elements. So some of the books that I'm going to talk about here today are straight fantasy romance, and some are fantasy with romantic elements in them. So the first one is actually what I would consider a classic in the fantasy romance genre, and that is the Terran Soul series by C.L. Wilson. The first book is Lord of the Fading Lands, and there are five books in this series. Now, why I think this is classic in the fantasy romance genre is the fact that this book was one of the first that really took a fantasy with romantic elements and really pushed the romance to the forefront. So that hadn't really been done at the time. So I would consider this one of the pioneers in the genre. So it's a series that's a must read. Now you can think of it like very epic fantasy romance with fated mates. It has powerful magic. It has a shifter fae hero, and also that very protective alpha kind of romance, also slow burn. So this one has all of the things that you could love if you like fantasy romance. And again, it's a classic, it's a must read. You have to read it. So the basis of the story is that we have a powerful torture fae king, and he's basically losing control of his magic. So he is turning into a mythical beast. That's where the shifter part comes in. And he's desperate to save his people. And while doing that, he stumbles across the heroine of the story, who's a very sheltered and shy girl, and turns out that she's his fated mate. So it really immediately the relationship bursts from that, because if you read fated mate stories, you know that sometimes it's like an immediate connection, and he is very alpha and powerful, so he has to struggle with that aspect of his own being. And the heroine is very shy and very quiet, but she also has magic of her own that she has to grow through in this first book. So you see that relationship building while she is growing, and he has to learn to give her space for that and to kind of rein himself in and change some of the things about his own self. And some of that stuff for him comes from trauma as well, past trauma that he has to deal with. So it's a really lush story also in terms of storytelling. I think all of the books that I'm going to be talking about here today are very lush storytelling. But this one, it has like a very deep magical lore. It has the take on the fated mates is a soul bond, which I think is really interesting concept how the author did that. It deals with healing and vulnerabilities of both of the characters through the bond. So if you like also fake chords and some darker magic elements, the stakes are also pretty high in this series. So this one is perfect for that. It's quite emotionally intense, and I think you're going to really love it. C.L. Wilson in general is an author that you should be reading if you read fantasy romance. She has this whole series, but also she has other books and other series that you can check out as well. Now, the second book is also one that I consider, or series. This is a trilogy, and it's the Cushiel's Legacy series or trilogy by Jacqueline Carey. This is a completed trilogy, but there are other trilogies that are in the same world. You don't have to read those. These are my chunky books. These are pretty chunky books. So if you want a very chunky fantasy to read for winter, this is it. This is the one. Also, this is very dark fantasy. It has political intrigue. It has a slow burn romance, like the slow burn romance of all slow burn romances. And it deals also with BDSM elements. It has some epic world building and lots of court intrigue, lots of morally gray and morally complex characters. So with Jacqueline Carey, you can expect basically the trilogy, this first trilogy follows our heroine Phaedra. And Phaedra is kind of like not a typical fantasy heroine. She's trained as a courtesan and a spy. And the world is very inspired by Renaissance Europe. So in this world, they are trained, or they are basically serving different gods. So by serving different gods, they have different lifestyles and different convictions of how they live their lives. And our heroine has been divinely marked by God, or her god, to serve by experiencing both pleasure and pain as one. And that is where her job is to be a courtesan in basically BDSM environments or scenarios that are presented. So she's experiencing both of those, and it's a divine or spiritual thing. And the romance of that comes with our hero, and it is throughout the whole trilogy. When I talk about like epic romances and epic couples, this is one of my top three for sure, maybe my top one. So the hero is Jocelyn. He is a very stoic bodyguard that is assigned to protect her. And he is the complete opposite of her. He serves a different god, and he has taken a vow of celibacy. So he's the polar opposite of her, but he is so loyal, and he has this very like, he would fight and die for her, not only because that is the mandate of his god in his job, but also because of the connection that develops between them, even though she is the everything that he's learned to despise in terms of how people should live their lives. So there's a lot of angst and a lot of polar opposites attract in this story. And she's navigating all of this sensuality through her work, which is literally sacred. And on his side, he really has to navigate his conflicting feelings on how he feels for her and how he has to protect her in those scenarios too, while being part of those scenarios. And of course, the world building is just really rich, amazing. There's lots of court politics, secret societies, there's some epic quests. There's also lots of betrayal and real danger. So the stakes are super high in this series. The characters go through a lot of stuff, and lots of twists and turns. And definitely you might need like a little bit of a break between them, because some of them can be intense and heavy. But again, there's only 3 books, so you can take a slight break if you don't want to binge right through them. But I think that they are so worth it. Definitely ones that I highly recommend. The third one is the Flesh and Fire series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So if you have heard, I'm sure you've heard of Jennifer L. Armentrout, but the Flesh and Fire series is an actually completed series and is the prequel to the From Blood and Ash series. So if you haven't read the From Blood and Ash and that is not finished, you could read the prequel. This one is finished, and you can just binge right through this one, and you could go into From Blood and Ash. So this one is fantasy romance. So this is a true romantasy. And enemies to lovers, it has gods, it had vampires, and very broody hero. It has slow burn romance. Now, in comparison to From Blood and Ash, if you have read that, this one is more fantasy heavy, and it does involve like darker mythology and gods. So we have our heroine Syrah, and she is the chosen one, sacrificial chosen one, and she has to keep a super dark god imprisoned. But then that god, which is Nyktos, is the primordial of death. And he's not only waking up, but he's very much involved in everything that's happening around our heroine. He's very broody, he's powerful, and very emotionally complex, and more so than you're going to find from the beginning. So you're going to explore that as you read the series. There's lots of tension between them as well. And I think that if you like the kind of heroes where they're very protective, but also they're the problem, then this is going to be a good one for you. It has enemies to lovers, it has forced proximity, and it has a bit of forbidden romance as well. And of course, vampires and gods. So you can't go wrong there. Also, I think Jennifer Armentrout has a really great signature and addictive storytelling vibe to her stories. So any book that you pick up by her is going to be great. She has lots of fantasy books, lots of paranormal books. So it's an author that you could dive into her whole backlist during winter, and you're going to be perfect. Now, the next series is the Fate and Flame series by K.A. Tucker. This one is also 4 books. This was recently completed in 2024, so the last book just came out. And this one is a portal fantasy. It has slow burn romance. It has political intrigue. It has some quite complex characters as well, and a strong heroine plus the broody prince hero. So in this one, we have a heroine from modern day. And there is a reason why she's chosen from modern day and transported into this fantasy world, which is very medieval fantasy inspired. And she's basically finding herself with a task of something that she's been transported there for, and not on her, like she didn't want to do that, but she just finds herself here, and now she is in the body of the wife of the prince who just recently tried to kill him. So she's in a body that has some trouble coming for her. But at the same time, the hero, which is the prince, he is very conflicted with his relationship with his wife. He doesn't really know whether to trust her or not, but there's this push and pull relationship between them because he kind of wants to protect her, but he's also very ruthless. So she also has to navigate what are the secrets, what's going on around her, so she can do what she came here to do, so she can leave. But at the same time, things are never what they seem. So she has to kind of navigate a lot of political intrigue and secrets and that kind of stuff to get her bearings and save herself too, because of course there's danger looming around every corner. So world building is also really rich, and there's elemental magic, there's curses, there's lots of power dynamics in the kingdom, and all of that is things that she has to navigate through, and the slow burn romance builds between her and the prince throughout the 4 books. So it's very immersive and very intense. So I think if you want something that's very character focused, this is going to be a great series for that. And then the last book last series, sorry, that I have for you guys, this one is the longer series of all of them. So this one actually has 12 books. And it is also another one like the Jacqueline Carey. It's more fantasy with romantic elements. That is the Black Jewels series by Anne Bishop. Now, Anne Bishop is an author that I absolutely love. She also writes some urban fantasy, which is really dark and intense and really good. So the first book in this series is Daughter of the Blood. And the Black Jewel series in general is very dark fantasy. It has found family, has very powerful women. So if you're looking for a fantasy with some kick-ass heroines, this is going to be the one for you. Also has very complex magic, dark fae, some emotional relationships throughout the series as well. It does deal with some trauma throughout the series, so you may want to check some of the trigger warnings. Again, it's dark fantasy, so when you're dealing with that, you may want to check some trigger warnings for that. So in this one, the series basically kicks off in this first book with a prophecy about a queen who is either going to save the world or destroy it. And we have our heroine, who was a young girl that was prophesied to basically be the most powerful witch in existence, but she's also very broken in many ways because this world is very brutal. So surviving it is hard. So she is mentored by Satan, which is literally the Lord of Hell. And Satan is this very morally gray father figure to her, but he's very protective. And then there's the Dark Prince, Damon, and he's got very like dark powers and all of that, but he's also obsessed and has this soul deep connection to our heroine. And it's basically like a version of Fated Mates, but in a very spiritual, kind of raw emotional level, which is really interesting and really intense. So the world here is all about dark magic, fae-like courts, and lots of power struggles and power dynamics. But at the core of all of these stories, there's a lot of healing and found family and surviving trauma and thriving after that. So I think it has very beautiful storytelling and also kind of like relationships that are really going to emotionally wreck you when you're reading them and probably make you cry and sob a little bit, but all in a good way. So those are my recommendations.
I swear, it's one of them days. Anyways, I know Jennifer Armentrout, but I didn't know that series. I'm just like, okay, something else to add.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Jacqueline Carey series, like that chunky books. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good one to go down the rabbit hole. So
yeah. It's perfect for winter. It's also good on audio. I mean, I listen to the audios.
Perfect.
Oh, nice.
2 times speed.
Speed. Listen, we all have our speed preferences. Let us know in the comment if you listen audiobooks. Okay, what's your speed? We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so Laura is going to close us out with those feel-good books. See, this is what I love about Laura. You always know it's going to be feel-good and it's going to be cozy.
Yeah, so we're going to go for cozy mysteries. I have about 7 series that are mostly completed, or there are no new books coming out, so that should give you. Some series are shorter, some series are longer. So we're going to start with Live and Let Chai by Bree Parker. This series is complete. It's a seaside cafe mystery. There's 7 books in the series. It's set in Charm, North Carolina, which is a seaside coastal town. Our sleuth actually just came back to town, opened a little tea shop in this coastal town, and someone dies. And as always, she has to figure out who is the killer, because she's not the killer and she's the current suspect. I read all these the first book in the series, and they're usually that's the storyline. But if you're looking for a cozy escape in the seaside cafe, this is the one for you. All the titles are related to teas and different drinks situation. So if you want a little bit of tea, chai, and everything in between, this series is for you. So the next series, we're actually moving into the Hamptons. So the next series is Better Homes and Courses. It's a Hampton Home and Garden Mystery Series, 8-book series. So in this one, our sleuth actually moved out from Manhattan to the Hamptons to start her interior design company. And somehow she landed this business, and the owner of the house is dead. And she has to not only uncover who killed the owner, but also to clear up a big estate sale and trying to clear out all the clutter that's been around for hundreds of years. And so it's just a fun one if you're thinking about like home design and better home and domestic interior design. This book is series for you. So there's 8 books in the series. It's mostly completed. It's set in the Hamptons, so rich and famous kind of deal. Let's look for the cozy mystery there. The next series is A Doomful of Sugar by Catherine Bruns. It's a maple syrup series, and this one is perfect for the fall because it's a maple syrup farm, but I think maple syrup is also in the spring, so it can go either way. But this one, Layla Curry, basically she has to come back to her farm. She left town because she had I think she broke up with her fiance, ended up moving to Florida to be a teacher, and then her dad was killed. And she inherited the farm from the dad, and she's trying to figure out who killed her dad. So this was a little bit more like touch with grief and connection. And she also inherited the farm, and she realized it was like trying to figure out who is the one in charge. This one's set in Vermont. It's beautiful maple syrup. It's all farm. There's a cute, single dad business person who works in that farm, and he's grumpy, and she's like trying to figure out is he the killer or is he the love interest. So there's a little bit of burning romance. This is a 3-book series, so it's perfect if you want to read like a set in Vermont, you want to get out. The next series is Farm Fresh Murder by Paige Shelton. It's a farmer's market mystery series. It's a 6-book series. It's actually completed. So if you're thinking about farmer's market, this is the one to go to. So in this one, the first book of the series, Becca I think she has her own stall. Her sister owns a farmer's market. And there's this dispute, this guy who joins the farmer's market recently gets killed. But he's also in another farmer's market. So there's a farmer's market kind of mystery around it. And it's actually set in a sense of they're trying to figure out the investigation, what happened to it, because they're blaming on somebody else. But he has a mysterious past. They don't know where he lives. They don't know his background, but they feel okay, he might be related to this murder. And so we're trying to cover the murder, but also uncover the logistics of this farmer's market along with the other farmer's market. And it's just a lot of farmer's market. So if you like fresh food, fresh farmers market, fresh fruits and vegetables, this one's for you. The next one is Murder at the Lemon Tea Cakes by Karen Rose Smith, which is Daisy Swenson tea gardens in Pennsylvania. So this is Amish country, but at the same time they're not Amish. So Daisy Garden, her aunt boyfriend gets killed, and it turns out that he had another family, so they're trying to blame it, but he had a inheritance that the aunt was going to inherit, and so the other family's trying to figure out blame it on the aunt that she killed the guy, and she's like, no, my aunt did not kill this guy. he's like a con artist trying to just swindle around it. And so they're trying to clear up all the investigation. And it's a 10-book series. So basically, there's a lot of tea gardens. So this is another tea drink. It's a cozy mystery debut of a blend suspense and sweetness. So it's a pretty sweet, saccharine, feel-good series to watch. And the final book is the key. Actually, I have two more books. So the next one is The Quiche and the Dead by Kristen Weiss. This is a pie mystery series. This is a 5-book series. So in this one, The Quiche and the Dead, Valerie opened a pie shop of her dreams, and someone dies by eating her quiche. And she's like blame about it, and she's like, well, that's not how it happened. So somebody got poisoned the quiche, and so trying to figure out who poisoned the quiche and trying to open up like what is happening in this case, like where are we going. It's set in like pies and quiche and baked goods. So if you're hungry, this is not for you. But if you're not hungry, if you're just looking for some baked goods, this series is for you. And the final series is Brand New Death by Victoria Hamilton. This is a Mary Muffin mystery series for 7 books. It's like 7 books in the series. In this one, Mary Winter relocates to Autumnvale, New York. So it's like upstate New York, and she inherits this like state. And she was like basically she doesn't know what she was gonna do. She was down on her luck. I think her fiance broke up with her. She was basically like just don't know what to do with her life, and starts cooking some muffins to local people. And then realized like, hey, this could be a business that you can do while you renovate the state. So she's trying to get the kitchen certified and get all the logistics to it. And in the between, one guy basically just found the troublemaker found dead in a hole in the state. And so they're trying to figure out who killed the guy. And it's a mystery. It's a found mystery around it because her uncle isn't related to it. And there's actually like mysteries around like the logistics of who killed this guy. But it's a fun series. It's a fun, if you think about it, I inherited a house and what I'm supposed to do, I might as well just sell a cozy mystery. So that series is 7 books in the series, and it's perfect for upstate New York. So those are the recommendations.
Hey, I love The Quiche and the Dead. I read that one, and I read this series. I think it's what, Pie Town Mystery Series or something.
Yeah.
So good. I really enjoy that. But the one I think I'm going to take from you is the Better Home one, the Hampton one. I'm like, okay, that sounds like me. Yes.
Yes, it's a really it's an upgrade from the Diva series. There's another Martha Stewart one, so it's kind of like Martha Stewart, Ina Garten kind of vibes, but interior design. So.
Yeah,
fun.
That sounds interesting, and the chai one too. I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds fun. That sounds fun.
Yeah, the quiche one for sure caught my eye.
It's good. I read that series. I actually recommended it on a list of series that I've finished to read. So yeah, so good. All right, everyone. Again, we will be live next week. We'll be live next week. I'll be back. So next week is the 16th. So we will be back and live Thursday, January 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. New York time. We hope you will join us then. For some reason, this calendar isn't coming up, but I will tell you, I will read the calendar to you. So next week, when we are live, we are sharing books with wintry settings. And then the following week, we're sharing some magical realism books to cozy up with. You'll be able to see more about that as we sign off and close out, because the calendar is on that one. But anyways, I hope you all are doing well. Remember, subscribe to our channels, find us on Substack, and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.